Happy Sunday, Mo Bromley. It's Harry from Lads Talk Health, and we've got another episode today. Today's going to follow on from some of the talks that we have done over the last few weeks. The next conversation literally will impact all of us because we're all going to go through it at some point of our experience here. Just going to accept James on. Where are you? There we go. Yeah, so the conversation tonight is going to be on death. And death is a topic that I think has a lack of education and a lack of understanding on. But as I mentioned, death is something that impacts us all. And I think if we understood death more, we'd be able to live a lot more fulfilled life because of that acceptance.
Hello, mate.
Hello, mate, you right?
Hello, Bromley. Who's ready for the most cheerful conversation about death you're ever going to experience? You alright, mate, yeah?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, great weekend so far. Lots and lots to be very grateful and happy about. And yeah, really looking forward to this. I love talking about death. Absolutely love it. Considering I was so scared of it for so many years because of my upbringing being such a religious Christian, you know, as far as I was concerned, up until another Harold, as you know, funnily enough, and until I experienced, which I now know, no one can tell me nothing about death anymore because of my experience, which I'm sure will come out in this show. But I was petrified of death for years, even though I've not been religious for years. The fear that was indoctrinated into me about hell and death stayed with me for years, for absolute years. So it's been a revelation for me to now to really enjoy, especially experiencing death so closely with so many people now over the last 8 years. Completely changed my opinion on it, mate.
Mm-hmm. And I think my biggest teachers too have come around the topic of death because it does put things into perspective when you are, and just kind of set the time how death is not in our lives and it is fearful. So we're born into a world where when we die, and especially with all the movies, all the cartoons, it's all like tragic. It's all the characters are crying. It's something that's installed in us. It is a really sad moment in time. And then if you look at how it does happen, like we never see the body. It's whisked away. It's taken to a hospital. Then when we go to the funeral, we still don't experience it. We're not around that. It's hidden from us in a casket. I've said it before, but sometimes when you do see the body's got loads of makeup on and it's not a real life thing. And then all of a sudden, like we have the funeral and stuff and we just see it's the end point. And what we've experienced over the years is a lot of suffering. There's a lot of grief that happens from there. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of anger, I guess, within the families because of this lack of knowledge. But the more that we've dived into this and experienced it with people and also then done further education on it, we can completely flip it and turn it into a magical experience and also an experience that when we do understand it, it completely changes everything.
100%. And Charlie just wrote there a moment ago as well. I feel the same, James, just scared to death. It's understandable because it's the way death has been sold to us. But that's within this generation. Fair enough, Botox, free beauty, totally understand that. Blessings to you and your wonderful mother, who's still around, that's for sure. So totally understand that. But yeah, the way death has been sold to our generation, to our culture, is completely arse race. Because you haven't got to go, in fact, you can still go out to places where it's not so supposedly modernized and westernized, I'd say, and you'll still find that death is something that people prepare for, literally, in a way of celebration, as it's the next step, which, again, I could appreciate. If I was sitting watching us two now, listening to this, prior to my own experience, I'd still be very skeptical, which I totally understand. Why? Because that's the way our ego keeps us safe as well. be scared of death. You know, it's just something that's put into us that we should always fear. But again, stating the obvious, like how you said, it's the one thing, funnily enough, that really does join all of us together is death, because it's the only thing that is 100% a guarantee for every human on this plane. We are all going to die. So that's a fact. So that, at a foundational point, which is what we always talk about, if you've got that as your foundation from a point of acceptance, yeah, I'm going to die. Where does that leave you? So go on, mate.
No, I was going to go. Continue still.
Oh, okay, cool. So if you've got, and again, I don't know, I'll use my own experience. Right. So basically, I'm going to nutshell this story because it's a long story. But long story short, go on, mate.
So guys, pay attention to this story, because since we've experienced this, it's gone on to so many other things. And when you hear the story from someone, you can't take that away. You can't refute it at all. And this story within conversations that we've had with our clients really helps them understand, and also where it leads on to after within this conversation.
Definitely. And just to sort of place on that, since this experience, what it's added for me is, well, it's a couple of things. I was finally able to accept my son's death that we lost and to connect with my son after what I'm about to explain to you. And I'm going to say this to you. I totally understand if you hear this story and think your ego's going to go either, he's talking shit, what a load of bollocks. Oh, it's just in his head. Fine, that's your ego, okay? Somewhere inside of you, your soul's going to be a little flame. Really? And that's what I needed for me to happen with death. So as many of you probably know by now, me and Harry have been working with people with cancer, and many people that are terminal for quite some time. 8 years for me, Harry's 5-6 years himself. So it's been a combined quite a few years between the two of us. Now, one of the people I worked with, his name was Harold Williams, and he was a poet from America, Tampa Bay, Florida. His sister reached out to me, beautiful sister Tony. Long story short, he'd only had a couple of weeks to live. By the time, in fact, he started on the plant medicine and the process that we take people through, he only had 2 days to live. Needless to say, I'm going to fast forward because you can look at his story. This whole in-depth story is actually on my channel, James Mannion Coaching. If you want to, I give you the full details. I'm not going to do that this evening. But fast forward 3 months. 3 months after he was supposed to be dead, he was no longer a vegetable in the bed with a big tumour in his neck. He was getting up. He was using the toilet himself, whatnot. But he passed. He passed. And Tony's convinced it wasn't the cancer in the end that got him. It was because of the signs of the cancer was healing. But she's convinced it was the treatment that he'd gone through. But point being, the night he passed, so he's in Tampa Bay, Florida. I'm in Wiltshire, in Marlborough, a place called Little Bedouin. I don't know how many thousands of miles are between Little Bedouin and Tampa Bay, Florida, but I know it's a long way. So because of the time difference, it was quite common that I would get messages from his sister 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because of the way it worked out. And then I'd answer the messages when I woke up. That was how over the months the relationship had gone. Anyway, so this night I'm in bed and there's only one other dream. I'm 40 years old. There's only one other dream that I remember as vividly as this, which I'm not going to go into. But my point is, we all dream, don't we? But there's not many dreams I actually remember. This, I can tell you, my story will not change, will never change with this, because as soon as I think about it, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up and I can recount everything that happened in that dream. I was in a flat, which was the property prior to the place that I was staying in at that point, in Thatcham, which I don't know if you came to, Harry, the one in Thatcham, but I was in a flat, and as all usual, it was a normal scene. I was standing up, and on the living room floor was my wife, my 2 lovely children, and they was playing a board game, and then all of a sudden there was this almighty bang, bang at the front door, which everybody froze. I remember my kids and my wife just looking at me, and I was like, okay, I'll go and get the door then. So I'm walking towards the door, and what's so interesting in this dream, even talking about it now, I was in the environment. I could feel, I knew where I was. It wasn't like I flicked to the door. I walked through the living room, round to the left of the corridor. As I was getting to the door, there was another almighty bang, and the top of the door, much like Harry's door behind him, that sort of wooden door, the top of it, it almost like went on its hinges, so it broke, so it like flapped over. And in the doorway, and it was raining outside, there was thunder, there was lightning, and in the doorway, there was a black man with a black hoodie on, really big and muscular man, and he was just standing there looking at me. But in my dream, it's really interesting because as much as I wanted to look at him, I was shitting myself. I was scared, and I cowered down because the bang made me go on the floor, and I was trying to look at him through my fingers. Now at that point, just as I was getting brave enough to look at him, all of a sudden I could feel myself being shaken, and I woke up, and I was like, I was gone to my wife, like, oh, what's the matter? What's going on? She what's going on? She went, you're crying and you're whimpering in your sleep. Like, what's going on with you? I was like, I was just having a really vivid dream. About Harold. That was in my mind, but I was half asleep still. And then, of course, what happened was typical bloke thing. I woke up. All of a sudden, I need to go a wee. So I grabbed my phone, pick up my phone, turn it on, just to navigate in. And I don't mean I turned the light on. I just switched the screen on so that I could navigate through the darkness so that I could get down to the toilet. And as I flicked the screen on, I noticed there was a WhatsApp 202. There was a WhatsApp from Tony. I didn't click it at that point. I went down the stairs, went for a wee. As I was coming up the stairs, literally still in a daze, still thinking about the dream. As I went back into bed, I literally clicked on the message. I looked at the message, and the first line was, James, I just wanted to let you know that Harold's become one of God's angels. That was the line. And it didn't even resonate with me at that point. I remember reading it, literally reading them words, going back to sleep. Woke up the following morning, didn't remember it. And what's weird, my wife didn't remember it either. Neither of us remembered or thought about the dream. Because I'd already clicked on the message, it was no longer a notification on my phone. So again, I'm looking at my phone, there's no notification now. I've already clicked on this, so I'd already seen it. So I'd do my usuals, which at that point was getting all the parcels ready to go down to the post office. And this was in the COVID. This was right at the start of COVID. Now, why is that relevant? Because living in a little village with one post office, and I was going to there daily to do my deliveries, I get my parcels sent out. I'd go there and there'd always be, and I'm sure people experience this, a massive line outside the front of the post office, especially because the lady in there, bless her, she was pretty much deaf and blind. So by the time any one person got seen, it was about 10 minutes. So I pulled up in my car, parked up, got out of my car, got all the parcels on my lap, in my hands, and as I'm walking across the road, on my children's life, this is, and I wouldn't say that age, I did because I want to emphasize the realness of this story. I had my voice as clear as day say to me, you idiot, Harold came to see you last night. And instantly I remembered the dream, and it just hit me. I dropped all the parcels. Everyone just turned around and looked at me like, what are you doing? And then the reality of the situation kicked in, and instantly I broke. I started crying my eyes out, literally crying my eyes out in the middle of the street, picking up the parcels, trying to chuck them back in the car, dropping one as I got my foot caught in the door. I was just in a state, trying to get in the car, shut the door, went to my phone, and of course, 2:02 in the morning, message from Tony, James, just wanted to let you know that Harold's just become one of God's angels. So it was like, it did happen. And then, this is where it gets really, really, even more. You think that's amazing or maybe incredibly bollocks so far. Wait till what happens next. So I'm then like, oh, fuck. Then I'm like phoning my missus, like, babe, do you remember like that dream last night? She went, oh yeah. I said, babe, Harold died. He died, like, and like, I think he came to see me in my dream. And my wife is very, very spiritual. She was way spiritual before I met her. So she was not even shaken by this or not surprised at all. But then what I realized is his sister, Tony, who I'd been in regular contact, would have seen that I had 2 blue ticks because I've seen the WhatsApp and I've not got back to her. So then instantly came this feeling of guilt, like, oh my God, she's She's going to see that I saw it. And I was in contact with her. Not only her, I got to know the family, called me Uncle James, her daughters. I was really close with this whole family. So at that point in my head, again, all ego, it's all about me letting them down, not really thinking about, they've probably got their own stuff that I'm just thinking, oh, James, you didn't do what you're supposed to do. But this is where it gets really amazing. So I'm messaging Tony, and I obviously wasn't going to message her, oh, Tony, last night I had this dream. Because, I was still in a state of shock over what had happened. But also, at that point, I didn't want to make it about me and my dream. Oh, your brother came to see me when he died. But I didn't feel comfortable with that. So I text her a long message just saying, as you would, Tony, I'm really sorry about about Harold losing Harold. He's in a better place now, blah, blah, blah. Nice long message. And sent it. I didn't hear back for a day and a half from Tony. And in that time, my ego went mental. Oh my God, she's seen it, I've seen it, that she's seen my message, she's not got back to me, she's probably thinking, what an arsehole. Like, you see my brothers that died and like, you've not even bothered, you've seen the message, you've not even bothered to send a message until what, like 9, however many hours later in that morning. Like, when did you get up? In that, all of that's going on in my head. So for a day and a half, and I sent one more message. In fact, I think it was just like an emoji, a heart emoji, literally just to sort of, and again, I saw that she'd seen it. So then, a day and a half later, I get this long text. And I've got all of this, actually, because I've put this up on, this might even be up on my channel, the screenshot of this from my phone. I've still got these messages, so to back this up with. I've got a big screenshot from Tony, okay? A big message, WhatsApp message from Tony. James, I'm so sorry I've not been in contact. I'm thinking, you're sorry, that's the start of it. She went, but I need to tell you what happened. And I'm thinking, where's this going? So anyway, I'm reading through the message. She said, James, the night Harold passed, which was obviously, at that point, a night and a half ago, basically, he passed. The following morning, my godfather, Tony's talking about, my godfather messaged me and said, no, called me, sorry, and said, you need to come and see me. And she was like, well, look, Harold's just passed. Like, I've got something. She said, no. He said, no. Harold is telling you, you need to come and see me. So she's driven a long way across the state to go and see with one of her daughters. I know this because I was talking to her daughter as this was going, well, just after this was going on. I was actually talking to her daughter and she was recounting the same story that Tony was telling me. So she said, my godfather called me. We drove over there. She said, listen, Harold came to see me the night he died. And he had a message for a man who's long way away, that he came to see him to tell him thank you for their help. And he wanted to show him that he was all right and he was healthy, but the man was scared. Tell him not to be scared, because I am going to come and see him again, and look out for any little noises or any little signs for what's being for me, basically, because I'm close. And he also said the business, because me and Harold got really close. By the time he died, funny enough, he could talk. When I first met Harold, he couldn't talk. His tumor was so big on his neck, his head was like this. So the whole time he couldn't talk, he was in pain. But by the end of it, thank goodness, he was able to talk. So he even wrote a poem before he died, which was one of his goals that he set. So he told me, I told telling him about Lads Talk Health and Harry and what we were doing. Harry, you got to speak. Did you get to speak to Harold? Did you got to speak to Tony? Definitely. Did you speak to Harold? I can't remember, mate.
Yeah, he had that kind of voice, like
at that stage. Yeah. Well, at the end, he was back to himself in regards to his voice. So anyway, long story short, what I then realised was, because then so I've got this message from, and that was it. Tony's oldest daughter said, can you describe him? And the guy said, he's not from here, he doesn't sound like us, and he's tall with blonde hair. So the daughter went, oh my God, that's James. This is what I'm getting from the family. So there, I've gone from a day and a half of shitting myself over thinking they're never going to talk to me again, to them pouring out this excitement of this story. So then I was able to share with them, oh my God, do you know what happened? The night, And I got my wife, as God as my witness, okay? If anyone's into it, anyone doubts this and they need proof of this to make them feel better, I can give you all of this. Private message me. I'll give you the screenshots and I'll give you what happened next. So I said to my wife, because my wife's an artist, I said, babe, I'm going to describe how he looked in this picture. Can you draw it for me? So she went, yeah, I'll give it a go. So my wife drew this picture of this man. And bearing in mind, I only knew Harold after being battered by chemotherapy, not eating for months because he was in a hospice. When I met him, he was on the deathbed. He was just being told he's going to have a few, like I said, a couple of weeks. There was nothing of this man left. So as far as I knew Harold, he was just a skinny, bony bloke. Like, I'd never seen him in his younger years. But in my dream, he was pretty buff. Like, he had good shoulders on him. And so I explained it to my wife. She drew it. And importantly, I said, make sure you draw with the black, it was like a black hood across his shoulders, like it was like a hoodie style top. So anyway, my wife drew it. I said to Tony, look, I'm going to get my wife to draw this and we're going to send it out to you, which we did. We sent it out. It got there a couple of days before his funeral. And again, as God is my witness, this is the truth. Tony got the picture. She phoned me straight away. She went, oh my God, James, he was wearing his favorite black hoodie. When he died, the moment he died, he was wearing that black hoodie, just like the one. And then she sent me a picture back, an actual photo of Harold in his younger years. And he was a really well-fit, muscled out bloke. And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, it's just too much. And at the funeral, they took my wife's picture. And I feel so honored for this. I'm so proud of my wife. They took my wife's picture around and were showing people, and they were going, oh God, that's Harold. That's something that I described that my wife drew ended up looking just like Harold. So that is, and off the back of that, I won't go into because I want to get back to you, Hazana, but off the back of that, what that did for me instantly, I actually really grieved my son that I'd lost, because it was very difficult to think. My son's name's Chair that we lost. It was always really hard for me as Mr. Present and as Mr. Now and all the rest as I claim to be. I found that always really difficult, a soft, painful area with losing my son. But after that experience with Harold, it instantly made everything real for me and eradicated every bit of fear I've ever had around death. And since then, I've reconnected with my son. I meditate with him every single day, at least once. And I talk to him every single day, at least once. So much so that I now envision and experience him in my existence at the age he would be now, if he was still in this realm. So I'm forever grateful to Tony and Harold for coming into my life and taking away any fear of death that I ever had before, and equipping me now that if anyone, which we work with, loses someone, I can talk to them now confidently about where this person now is, with a knowing that I'm not saying this to fluff your pillars. This is my experience. Let me share this with you, and let me let you know this is where your wife, your child, your whoever, your mum, that lovely lady that said this at the beginning, that's where they are now. So that's my experience, which no one can refute, and it's changed my life. And that's why now I'm looking forward to dying, because I can't wait to see my son.
Yeah, love that, mate. Such a powerful story as well. And I think the key thing that you highlighted was that moment where it wasn't just a belief anymore, it was a knowing. It was, hey, this was my experience. And we go through levels, we can think it can be real, then we can believe it, but it's the knowing when it actually comes true. And once you have that knowing, you're open to a lot more that's being presented to you. It's like a process you go through. And when you say that you meditate with him every day, can you just explain what you do as well?
Yeah, so basically we've got, in fact, give me 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, 30 seconds. As I fill the space, I'll show you what I use.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why we talk about this, guys, is it does impact all of us. And I think if we can start looking at it through a different lens, and again, this is just two people sharing. These experiences are happening all over the world. I did a soul midwife course as well, where you help people with the dying process, the other end going out. And every soul midwife is now spiritual because they witness and experience things that happen at that course. And one of my things was that everyone should do a life coaching course. Everyone should do a midwife course as well, because it would change everything if there's a dying process and everyone goes through it all. And if we understood each part of the process, death turns into a beautiful thing. And I think there's a few things we'll touch on if we changed our ideology of death as well. So we've got some different concepts and viewpoints to look at as well.
Was you talking about the soul midwife?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more about that again after. I always love that. So basically, this is our shrine to chair. So this box, my younger brother Daniel, shout out to Daniel, love you, bro. He built this box for us, and inside this box is a picture of a chair and there's letters from me to him and from my wife, and I don't know, I'm getting a little bit emotional. So anyway, I couldn't face this box for years because of the pain. Just not wanting to. But after that experience, whenever I need to talk to chair, I take that box. And do you know what? I never forget the first time I connected with this box, which is going to sound funny, was after it happened with Harold. Probably and it was after I spoke to Tony. So after that happening, one of the conversations I had with Tony, you've been to the Forge, Harry, yeah? Do you remember in the living room, you had the open fireplace and where the sofa was, where the telly was in the corner, and there was that one unit on the left, which is where this box sat at the top. So it was always center of the house sort of thing. And it was the night after, one of the nights after I spoke with Tony and we'd gone through the story, that I was sitting there and I just looked up. So I was sitting on the couch. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Because like I said, that was a regular time that I would speak to Tony because of the time difference. And I was looking at the box and like I just really got emotional, and I went and I took the box down, I cuddled the box, and I just let it all out basically. And since that night, whenever now I meditate and I want to connect with chair, I just take this box with me. I'll either lay it down next to me. In fact, every time I work with Daisy, as you know, with Daisy's the young girl that I've been working with, I always have this box there, and I've got my hands on this box while I'm taking her through meditations for healing and stuff. But yes, I take this box with me and I'll sit there and I'll just go into I'll do my breathing, I'll go into my meditation with my intention of talking to chair. And it's been, I've told you this story before with the thumbs up, right? So basically, the way I picture chair now is, like I said, is at the age what it would be, which is Leo's 10, so it'd be about 8 years old. So when I connect with him, it always the same thing every time. First of all, I see his face, his hair, floppy hair, like Leo used to have, floppy hair over his fringe, brown eyes. My other 2 children have got blue eyes, brown eyes, with just a really calm look on his face. But he's now at the age of where he would be now. And I always ask him the same question. I say, Chair, are you with me? And I'll just see his little thumbs go up like that. And again, people will say, that's in your head. Yeah, it fucking is, because that's where it's happening. But the feelings that I'm experiencing, they're in my body. And in that place, I can lay there. And once I know I've connected, and I'll talk to him, and I'll feel him talking back to the point I've said to you, Harry. Now, when I do the same thing every time, once I know I've connected, I'm laying down, I'll hold him, and I'll place my hand, just like I would with a Leah or Leo, on the back of his head where they tuck their heads into my shoulders, which they still, even 10 years old, I still do this with Leo now. And I'll just feel him. I just feel his body. I feel him there. And it feels really real. And it's so real that at times, when I'm really, really connected with him, is I'll feel his arm around my neck and just sort of stroking the back of my hair. And that is the best feeling you could ever have. It's incredible. So yeah, that's my experience. That's my experience, which is ongoing. And yeah, I'm so grateful to Harold for coming into my life and bringing Chair back into my life, basically.
I'm going to share a story. There's an amazing doctor who's one of my good, and I heard his dialogue a few years ago on death, and the way that he explained his story and again his experience, it then justified even stuff that we have been looking into. So at the time, he was, you know, in the movies where people get resuscitated and like it's literally they die, they keep going, and they come back to life. Well, this is what Zach Bush did as his career, and he said, unfortunately, Hollywood lied to you. He said that bringing people back 5% of the time. Once they get to that stage, is really a doubt that they will come back. And he said that he'd been doing this for a number of years. He said one night, and I said, I remember it clearly. He said that his last 3 people, he went through that, they all come back to life. And he said it was unheard of to even get 1 usually in a day, let alone 3 back to back. And he said that with each one, if you looked at who they were, it was like an older gentleman, there was a priest, and there was a younger kid. And each one, he managed to bring them back. And he said it was the most insane, craziest thing that was presented to him after. And he said, first of all, they all said, why did you bring me back? All of them. He's like, I've just saved their life, I brought them back in. And they all responded, why did you bring me back? And the second thing that they said was, this was the first time in my existence that I felt accepted. I was in a place of peace. And he said at that moment, there was this whole reality check that hit him, that this is not the end point. It's just the starting point. It's the transition. And if all 3 people come back and said, why did you bring me back? That must mean there's something else out there that's worth going to. And from the back of that, working with clients is that we get so scared of death because we are taught it is an end point. We are put all the fear and everything that's thrown at us, and again we're not around it, that when we get to a certain age, the only thing that we start doing is fearing death. And whilst we're fearing death and going through this whole process, because we do go through the aging process, we do start deteriorating, that's happening. But that happens when, let's say 60 years old, we start noticing the aging process take place. So from the age of 60, there's already a fear of dying. So you live your life in fear. Your present moment is constantly worrying about dying, worrying about leaving people behind, worrying about how people are going to cope without them. And all these other stresses that come with it. What about the finances? What about this? That they're not being present. They're not being their existence in that role, playing like the grandparent or playing the daughter or son, because they're fearing death. So death actually becomes then our biggest teacher. Because if we understood that process of death and it does go on to a magical place, and loads of people are having these experiences and sharing their stories, then we can start enjoying life a lot more. And we don't have to wait to get to the aging process. We can start living right now in that moment. So I thought it was a really powerful story. And if you watch that, the way that he delivers it is amazing. Like it touches you. But I think it just then takes the pressure off of it, and also something to look forward to. But whilst we're looking forward, we can now just enjoy our life. Just be in the moment and enjoy every experience.
Bang on. And again, I'm sure everybody watching this, I'm confident, will have seen one of them programs where people have, you can call it they've claimed to have visited somewhere else prior to coming back, like Harry said. When I watch these programs, yes, my ego will go, used to, would go, oh yeah, they're just saying that. But why? What's their agenda? Have a bit more of a childlike logic look at it. Why? Just to get on television? Really? They had these experiences and somehow the TV find out about them and, you had that experience. Oh yeah, would you come on and talk about it? Yeah. Why? Because they want to share their knowing of, well, guess what? They'd say the same thing. It's something I used to fear. Now I can't wait to die, to go back to this place. Why would they say that? What is their agenda? What are they selling? If they are, I'll quite happily buy that, because even if you go down that route, why would you not like to think, oh, maybe there is something else there? And me and Harry aren't religious, so this is not coming at this from a religion standpoint. I don't attribute anything after death to anybody's book or any, excuse me, anybody's label of a god. That's not what I attribute the after death to. What I attribute it to is an all-knowing truth, an all-knowing energy that, again, I don't want to go down this route, but a big problem of our fear of death is also what we're told about how we got here in the first place, which is a load of rubbish. Because if you look into that, you'll find out actually what a load of rubbish that is that we're told about how we got there. And it goes back, and again, look into it yourself if you're interested. If you've got a fear of death, study natural science, study the evolution story, and all of a sudden you've got, really? Well, in that case, there must be something else. By studying science, that might, for some go, what's he talking about? Look into it, because the fact is, we're told we were some insignificant accident. The people that told us that, and the theory and ideology behind it, I've been looking into that for 13 years. Harry's pretty much exactly the same on me with that. So I'm not saying it from a point of all knowing. I looked into it because I got really interested. And the more I studied, the more I was like, my goodness. So there is a designer to all of this. Even by science is theories of science. It's all theories. But you trace it back to its origins and all of a sudden, okay. So my senses of what I experience is actually what I experience, because we're told a lot of the time what we see, what we feel, what we hit is not what it is. There's some magical story behind it that says no, that's not what it is, even though that's what you feel it is, and you go, well, that's what I'm experiencing. No, there's a story behind it with some maths and some data and some other stuff that you need to study for and get a doctorate for to actually to know what you're talking. No, fuck off. No, actually, no. Read that stuff and you soon find out, okay, actually, we all have meaning. Every single one of us is not an accident. Every single person that's watching this, and all of your loved ones and your children and everyone you've ever cared about, everyone you've ever met in your life, is supposed to be here. That's actually real natural science. When you look into it, which again, it all ties in, go back to common law, natural law, God's law. Look into this stuff. There is, again, it's been written about for years without any biblical or Quranic or Hindu or any labels. It was just an equilibrium of the approach to life and death and creation. Because that's what we experienced. I witnessed creation with 2 children. They weren't accidents, I can tell you that much. They were definitely meant to be here and have added meaningful energy to this plane that we live on. So when you strip it back to that, I am here. I am supposed to be here. Okay, so I'm supposed to die as well. It's all part of that beautiful number 8 that Harry loves to talk about, of life. It is a circle of life. Yeah, that's right. Watch The Lion King. There's a lot of truth in what they're saying. It really is. Everything just keeps spinning around, except for the world. Life just keeps spinning around in an infinite part of energy that we're supposed to be involved in. Supposed to be. Why? Because we was put here to experience this design of life, of nature, of everything that if you take away all any fairy books of bollocks that you've heard about, science, and just go by your experience in your, however old you are, just think, what have you experienced since day one that you can remember? Design. Everything around me seems to, it's meaningful. It has meaning. That's not what we're told. We're told we are all accidents, and that is a big part of the death fear. Because if it's just an accident, then obviously when you die, it's just it. That's it. It's just over. And if you want to subscribe to that, fine. But that's not what I subscribe to. That's not my experience. And to have it solidified in my experience by my son, my beautiful chair, by Harold, and now since then, Harry himself has done his soul midwife course, learned so much about this. This information's there. It's really there. It's not, and you don't have to go to university to study this stuff to find out. No, you don't. You don't. You just have to, first and foremost, you just have to have a bit of faith in yourself that you do have meaning, that you are, your self-worth should be, yeah, I was put here. Like, I've said this a few times and I'm not being crude. How many sperms shot out when you came through and you managed to get through? I don't think that was an accident. I think that means you're pretty fucking powerful from the off. You was a 1 in a million or whatever it was, but you came through. That means you are supposed to be here, which means whatever this whole cycle of this energy realm that we experience is, which does just keep on going, you're always going to be a part of. And so are the loved ones that you've lost. They're all still part of your cycle.
And we can then also change the whole education around it, because if we don't know, just like our future, if we don't know, then we have a choice. We can have a choice of what to believe or a choice what direction to go in. So if I don't know, and that has been presented to me, right, death ends, that's it, gone. I used to actually have that thought as a kid, and I used to cry. That the whole thing was you as insignificant. It was just, and that scared me from a young age as a kid. But you also then start looking at what we're taught as a kids. Again, going back to the cartoons and the Disney films, it's tragic. I haven't seen any deaths where people celebrate on those films. So as a kid, we do fear death just from the programming. The analogy for death or the human experience was like sending a rocket up in the air. So you take off and then it lands back again. It returns in on itself, or the wave. So we all start from the consciousness. But imagine as a timeline, you actually painted the picture for your kids at school. You said, look, you're going to get born. And then you're going to take off, and then your body's going to start growing, and then you're going to get into a big kid, then you're going to turn into a teenager, then you're going to get facial hairs, and you're going to meet the opposite sex, then you're going to get super fit and healthy, then you're going to get really unhealthy and get really drunk and learn all these lessons. Then you get old, and you're going to have a midlife crisis, and then you're going to start questioning what life is, and then you're going to get even older, you're going to get hairs out your ears, your eyes are going to get less and less working. And then you start getting older and older, and you're going to start deteriorating. Then you're going to just be, and then you lose the human experience. But after that, then you're going to go into this magical place, and you can create whatever you want. It's going to be infinite possibilities. Imagine just teaching that story as to your children. And whatever happens is, all you've got to do is just make the most of life. Like every single moment, just create and experience it, and make the most of why you're here. Because if you do, your present is going to last a long time. It's not going to shoot by. But you're also going to enjoy every single part of it and start appreciating this creation. If we started changing that narrative, again, how do we know either or? What would you want your kids to learn? How would you want to live your life knowing that there's still more after? Knowing that you can pick and create where you go to and what form and stuff you go into. Imagine just knowing that as your truth. And when you start getting the feelings, this is where meditation comes in. Like people say, oh, I want to go to heaven and I don't want to go to hell and stuff. Heaven and hell is myth. You can close your eyes and be in heaven right now. You don't have to wait to be in heaven. Heaven is your creation too, so I'm in heaven. And another thing, you know that when you draw the little things on the book and then you flip the pages and the character like moves and stuff.
Stick man, yeah.
Yeah, so this was what I think. Imagine if we had this train track just mapped out. So when you're born, literally every moment, now, and it's the book. Imagine if now, the nowness as well is when you die. So it'd be all lights, and it might be complete stillness now. And then whatever happens after. So we're literally just moving down this timeline as now. So we're getting older because we're now. Like we're just changing form, but the next form is just emptiness and whatever happens. Imagine that was the truth.
I love your truth. And to elaborate on your now, I can't remember which book this is from or where I heard this, but it's, again, goes back to even with etymology and words. So the word nowhere, this was the most beautiful way life was explained to me. Nowhere is where you start. In the middle, you split. Now, here, that's the spelling of nowhere. Then where do you move on to next? Nowhere. It's just a cycle that you're part of. It's as simple as that. You don't need to put a label on it. You just need to accept. Now I'm here. I came from nowhere, and even if I'm going to nowhere, now I'm here. I'm not losing anything because my foundation was nowhere. None of us know where we came from for sure. We can have theories, we can have feelings about where it would feel nice to, but one thing we do know as a fact, I couldn't put my finger on it as somewhere that I know, so it was nowhere. But now here, and then back to nowhere. How beautiful is that? That's your life cycle, and you haven't got nothing to worry about. You just enjoy the split in the middle of now here. Now, every single second. I was saying this today with a client. You always have a choice. Now, to touch on the negative of that, we all make bad choices, and then we'll go, yeah, but I'm stuck in this. No, you're not. First and foremost, you choose to stick in anything that you've got going on in your life. You're not stuck. Now, that can feel like, oh, well, what do you mean? No, I've got this going on, and I've got that going on, and it's my job. Sorry, bollocks. You choose to stick. Now, the positive part, well, hold on then. If I'm choosing to stick here, then that must mean I have a choice to unstick myself in my present and choose to put myself over here. Yeah, you do. You always do. And how empowering is that? Whatever you've got going on right now, you're choosing to stick in it. The way you feel about it, you're choosing. The way the thoughts you're getting stuck into and you're thinking about that situation, that is your choice. No matter how devastating that is. And again, I can say this boldly from working with people that have been told that they're going to die. Quite often, a lot of our clients are those people that have been given that news. You got 6 months, you got a year, you got this, you got that. That's the news of all. Oh, I'm stuck. Yeah, you're choosing to stick in that label. How about, really, I've got 6 months. I'm going to do whatever the fuck makes me happy for the next 6 months to make sure it's the best 6 months, knowing that wherever I go next is out of my control. But what I've got here now is my choice. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to be happy. And again, you don't have to cater for the people that receive your choices. That's not you. Your choices is your truth you stand on. And that's half the problem with the stuff that we're supposedly stuck in. You're stuck in it because you're catering for something else, someone's opinion, someone's feelings. They're not yours. You don't own them. How fucking self-indulgent are you to even think of their feelings? And you think, what are you talking about? No, think about that. You can only create your own happiness by choosing to do what makes you happy. You can only create your own sadness by choosing to stick in the things that you know doesn't make you happy. So get in your now. Now here. Enjoy that, feel that, make that choice, know that you're empowered. It don't matter what you're doing in life, whether you're a doctor, a policeman, someone who's just enjoying, not doing much, but chilling out, whatever it is, it don't matter. It's yours to own, and no one can take your now here away from you. That's your entitlement. You haven't got to live up to anything other than your happiness. Well, you're expected to do this, you're expected to do... How about just expecting to be the best version of yourself? That's your goal. What can I do for me to be the best version of me? No one else's opinion matters. For me, being the best version of me, because if I'm the best version of myself, then it doesn't matter anything that anybody else has to say or feel about it. Because it's your truth. And that's a fact. That is a 100% fact. You can only be the best you. No one else out of all the billions of people on this planet can be a better you than you.
Mm-hmm. And again, enjoying the human experience and as your best self. It's your choice then, and you can start living that life like the way you want it. Another thing which really helped me was Eckhart Tolle's book, New Earth, and he talks about the aging process and the returning process. But as our Western civilization, if you see what we did to our elders, and if you look at it, they become useless in the physical sense. They're just in the way, or they're too time consuming, and we stick them in a home. So whilst, imagine if it's a human experience, we've got the aging process and we're coming down, we've done the hard work, we've got the wisdom, but then we are being a human being, literally being in the moment. But what happens is, because there's such fear to death as well, we then put a load of drugs in there, we put loads of things just to get the body, they're not being anymore, their body's going into overdrive. So it's to almost think like a more connected experience, because that's when they really do start focusing on the next stage. It's returning on itself, it's the connection back to the universe. But they want to be doing that through the human experience, not the drugged up experience as well. And they said that there's a lot of truth to what gets passed on. The energies that's transferred is more pure. They're the dying phase as well. So I've worked with a few psychics now, and they said that some people get caught, like if it's a quick death, and they're in this limbo phase, and people come and help. So the dying process, if it's a smooth experience and guided into the next creation, should I say, then apparently that is a lot easier for them to deal with. So talking about psychics, it again can seem a bit woo-woo. I've experienced a few. One to search up, a Scottish gentleman called Gordon Smith. And when I was there, like my mate had went, he called his mate's brother commit suicide. He spotted the tattoo on the thing. He then started singing California Love by Tupac, which was his best song. Then he said, "You've been California," to the brother. And his brother was in bits. And then his nan come in and said, slapped. He said, "I keep getting this slap on my ear." And my mate said that his nan had one, she was deaf in one ear, so she used to clip around the ear and say, "Lucky." And this all just flooded out in this room, and I'm like, oh. And he explains it, like they're still here, their souls are present, and if there's messages that need to be passed down, they will wait around until they're received. And he then it was like he would call up he would say different things, and some people would put their hand up, and the first person who come in, he said, "Oh, he's first in the queue." And she was like, "Yeah, my husband was always first. Taxi queues, he'd always go to the front. Restaurants, he'd always push in. It had to be the first." And he said, "You've got dogs. The dogs keep barking." And she was like, "Yeah, they randomly keep barking." It's like, yeah, he's there then when the dogs are barking. So the reason why I'm saying this, and he was giving loads of examples where you could just see it, just took it all out of them. They were just... When you've been told something that can't be proven by anyone else, it's your secret, it's your knowing, it's your experience, and someone else says, that's when you pay it. I've yet to find many people in my life that have done that for me, so I've always been a skeptic, but I've now experienced it even more now I'm in this line of work, that it's a knowing now. It can't be, you can challenge it all day, but I could give you the story every time. But I'm saying this now for people that have lost loved ones, and especially it's been shown again and again, the energy is still there and still strong. The soul is still around too. So as they are teaching, look out for the signs. Set yourself that intention every day. And you might see a robin that has been one of my family members had said, that's her visiting me. There's a robin on the tree, it was just singing non-stop, wouldn't go away. And my dad's had one where a robin's flown in. He said it was his mum. Like there's all these different things, but look out for the signs, because there'll be things that pop up that you wouldn't normally notice. Then it's your choice. Does that feel real? If you keep seeing it again and again, that's your truth. No one can take that away from you. So I would encourage, try to look out for the signs, use your senses to experience, and some magic does happen.
Definitely. And especially within that first 24 hours of that person passing, that soul, they are so prevalent in your existence. They really are. And it's lovely because there's a lovely Australian bloke, Pat, whose wife Karen, this is about 2.5, 3 months ago now, who passed. And I spoke to him. That sounds perfect. Good timing, Lizzie. I spoke to him and I said to him, look out for the signs. I took him on a meditation as well. And part of the stuff we do with our meditations as well, which is in our membership site. I'm going to plug our membership site as well, by the way. We've got a membership site where we can really touch on everything that we actually are involved in, and which we're very proud. It's a really broad spectrum as well. So yeah, if you're interested, look, please message us about that. I took Pat through a meditation, and part of the stuff that me and Harry do is energy within your body, how to switch your energy on, because you really can. We can highlight and show you techniques, which then when you're trying to reconnect with a loved one, one of the things you'll never forget is touch. You'll never forget a touch of a loved one, of like if I think of my kids stroking their faces, my wife giving her a cuddle, holding her hand, these things will always be something I can just instantly think about and feel nice straight away, like instantly. The feel that touch, the touch creates the picture. So I took Pat on a meditation not long after Karen had passed, and he'd been struggling. And he'd also been struggling, which is another part of this talk on death, is when people die, what tends to happen is, and again, your ego is going to go, yeah, well, that's just what we do when people die, is all of a sudden you become that person. And in Pat's case, it's, oh, I'm going to become Pat, and if that was me and I'd lost Karen, this is how I'd feel. And then you outpour all of your sorrow onto that person.
Your loss will come like literally
all the time. And you'll say, yeah, well, of course, I'm doing it from a good place. Think about that. That person knows what they've lost more than you will ever know. They feel what they've lost more than you'll ever feel. So you're doing the societal pre-programmed, let me just reach out with all of my sorrow onto this person. Do you really think that's beneficial? I can tell you, fact, over the last 8 years, the people, not everyone we've worked with does get through and live on. They pass. They always, every time, have passed in a much better state prior to them starting the process, which is, in a way, preparing for whatever happens next, because it's an acceptance. All right, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. That is a really powerful acceptance. But when you're pouring out your sorrow to this person, I can tell you from their perspective what they've told me. Just like Pat told me when I messaged him, he went, you know what, James? You're the only one who actually made me laugh as well, because something I messaged him in that message, which I'll be honest, I thought, oh, do I have a fact that? No, why not? There's so much power in laughter. I know this is something they shared together. And he said to me, thank you so much, because all I've had is everybody else's grief. And it's not even let me time to breathe in my grief, because you end up catering for everybody else's. Because you're an empath, naturally. Most people are. And they're okay, I'm going to play that role. Thank you so much for reaching out. When really it's like, for fuck's sake. Like, let me breathe. Let me grieve in peace. But I took him through a meditation. And the first time I met Karen and Pat, they're in Australia, I'm in England. They just sat there the whole time. They was holding hands. I could see they was holding hands. So I took him through a meditation, and I'm going to switch the energy on in his hand. And then to envision holding Karen's hand. What he said afterwards, and just the way he said it as well, was beautiful. He said, James, it literally was just like when I was holding her hand. I felt that, and instantly I just had all these memories of different times when I held her hand. I said, but that's as real as it ever was when she was there. Because yes, physically she was holding your hand, but it was the feeling, wasn't it? It was that feeling of that touch that ignited everything else inside you, just like it did in that meditation. And that's something now he can do himself. It's, I can do it any time now. I'll just take it, like, I know he meditates now. Shout out to you, Pat. Love to you as well, by the way, if you get to watch this. It's something he does himself. He says, I'm going to use that every night. I'm just going to lay in bed and I'm just gonna use what you showed me, and I'm just gonna lay there, and I'm just gonna feel Karen's hand in mine, like I always have, and I'm gonna enjoy that feeling, just like she was there next to me. And no one will ever be able to take that away, ever. Just like no one can take away now, share for me and what I experienced with my son, because it's the feeling that is as real as the physical, because the physical creates the feeling. Well, if you can switch that on yourself by just putting yourself in that place of love and being with that person you've lost, pick up a photo. Pick up a photo, stare at that photo, go to bed with that photo, put it under your pillow. You will know that it's there. What will happen? You'll think about that person. You won't think about it, and you might even cry. Fucking good. That's a good emotion. But it's your sharing with that person. And back to the death thing, where it's not someone else pouring it on you. It's for you to enjoy emotions with that person, just like you did when they was alive, which is a mixture of emotions. But the point is your feelings for that person, they don't die. They don't go anywhere else. They're still there. And you can switch them on. Anytime you want, you can switch them on by just thinking about that person and how they made you feel. All of a sudden, you've got that feeling, that person's back with you.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. And, leading on to a meditation that I did with someone the other day, she wasn't even expecting to connect, and she got herself to her place of bliss. She created her own Garden of Eden. She said, I was floating in a bubble, and then my nan just popped in, and my nan floated with me the whole time. So the silence, like James said, it's still the feeling. Your feelings now, that is the present moment. It's always your feelings. My thoughts are in my past, but I'm feeling it now. Again, the 8, I go to my past, but the feeling is always at this moment. I just go past and future. It's my creation. So you can do that within the silence. That is your creation. But what James just said, which is really powerful, gave me an insight. How closely do we actually inspect our partners, our loved ones? How much attention do we give them to every single feature of them? Because if we brought more attention now, actually really paid attention, look at everything, notice the body language, notice the energy, notice the love coming off of them, notice their frustration. When you then go into that creation, it's a lot easier to get there. You've paid attention. You can recreate every moment of it. And some of the regrets is when people do pass from both sides, I wish I did this. I wish I spent more time. I wish I said I loved you. So again, it just puts it into perspective that we can do all that now without the regret. And if we pay the attention, we can connect on a deeper level every single time. You know when your partner says something up, you can feel it, it's their energy. Yeah, I'm all right. But you can see, you can feel. If we use our senses more, guys, you'll pay more attention to what's going on. They can say all the nicest things, but they got the most miserable face. There's something there.
I like what Madara just said, actually, about the cat. If you read that, she just said, basically, this might sound crazy. It's not crazy, but my rescue cat, she reminds me so much of someone I've lost. The thing is, animals, again, it's really funny. I was talking about this today to someone, a new client I've just picked up, the lady I was talking to you about before we had this call, funny enough, the lady in Spain. And I said to her, I said, you know what? When you lose anyone, get around animals, because all animals want to do is love and be loved and give love. That's what they want. And however you interpret that, is your, again, it goes back to your choice. If that's what you need at that point to feel, go and be around animals. In this case, it was dogs. It was a dog. I said, what does a dog do? They just turn up no matter what, wiggling their asses at you saying, just love me and I'll love you back. That's all I want to do. Animals are beautiful, and in times of loss, I couldn't recommend more. Be around animals, because what animals don't do is turn up to you and start throwing their grief at you for all the stuff that, oh, I'm really sorry. They just want you for who you are at that point. They want to be loved and they want to love you back. So yeah, Madara, I'd say there's a lot in what you just said, and connecting with that cat for whatever anybody else sees is what you feel that connection, and no one can take that away from you, because people can refute your thoughts, people can argue your thoughts all day, but your feelings, they're yours. You own them, so no one can take them away from you or taint them in any way. And only your ego, someone will take the piss or mock you for it, made your ego get dented, but you still had that feeling. They can't argue with that. So yeah, go on, mate. Sorry.
Madara, you can reconfirm that as well. Like, you could set yourself the intention, so you actually stare into the eyes and say, who is this? And literally just create that. That's the only question you need to ask. And again, I am a man that fight for your honor, as the music will bring that answer up every single time. I really believe that the souls are in the animals. There's something within them that's why they're so attached to you. That's why their love is for you. Because dog is God for me, and it's been sent there as a guide. I think it's really powerful. But again, look at the way that we're talking about these things. So you can flip it on its head and change it into a really positive experience. Madara just mentioned then, James, I did a post yesterday that I saw like a poet and a vet create. And he said when the animals are dying, they want to be near their owner too. They want the hug and the love. But one of the worst things for an animal is when they're not there at the dying phases. And it was a really powerful one.
Definitely. And Terry just mentioned, that's perfect timing, unconditional love. That is his truest love. It's that. And again, that when someone is no longer around, that is always there. It's that unconditional love that you experienced, that you gave and received from that person. That's timeless. That traverses this realm. For me, that's what the truth is of, I don't need a religion. I just need to know that there's unconditional love that I've experienced, both I've given and I've been the recipient of, and that's going to take me through whatever happens. But now, here, I'm going to make sure that is at my foundation. And that's why I'm quite happy now. It's really, I will tell anyone that I love them, because why would you not? It's that we don't really love them. Oh, really? So I can't choose to just have that feeling of love for someone else who I'm sharing this experience with. If you've been brought into my life, yeah, I love you. Why? 'Cause I love my life and I love now. And you're here with me. I love you then. Do you know what? That feels pretty good. So unconditional love is something, again, you choose to own. You choose to give. And if you're lucky, which a lot of us are, you are lucky enough to receive unconditional love. How wonderful does that feel? How present are you? Are you worrying about how you look or what's going to go on at work next week when you're in that state of unconditional love? No, you're not. And you can always choose, whether that person's there or not with you anymore, to remember that feeling. And all of a sudden, and you might cry when you remember it because it's sad, but it's still an appreciation of an emotion that you got to feel with that person. That's not dead. It's not gone anywhere. It's there with you. Tap into it. Have a toolbox of all your different feelings with that person. When you need to cry, take that memory out. Do you remember when we cried over this? Talk to them. I do. It's made me feel a lot better, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then just touching on what James said with love. Love comes in two. Love is a thought and love is a feeling. Our thoughts and what we think about love is very different to that feeling of love. So like James said, I can love everyone. If you just start from the feeling, I'm giving out love. Anyone that comes in contact with you receives your love. It's the moment where you label it as love is when you can't love them. Again,
so true.
Go with the feeling.
Mate, I'm going to have to... I've enjoyed this. Like I said to everyone, what a lovely talk about death. Mm-hmm. I've enjoyed that. It's funny, every time, because obviously we've spoken about these privately plenty of times because of obviously what we do. We're involved in it. And it's funny just how there's been a whole shift in me that when I talk about this now, and again, obviously I've got chairs sitting with me now as well, just makes me know inside that feeling of we've got nothing to worry about. Don't be so egotistically arrogant. you don't know what's going to happen next. How about just be, okay, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I've got now. And any label you've been told about death, again, you've not experienced it. It's somebody else telling you what it is. Fuck that. How about, like Harry said, paint that picture of if you was a child, if I did, I wish I had done that with my kids. If I said,
Listen to my insight then.
Go on.
If you're deaf, you can't fear death because you don't know what it is. No one can explain it to you. That's why you're deaf. So you're literally just here now, and you don't know what's going to happen. People might be able to communicate with you, but imagine if we were just born with no words. It was just your experience. No one could tell you what death is. You're just here present.
So true. So true, mate. But yeah, thanks for, as always, for people that are tuned in this evening. I am saying to you with confidence, anyone you've lost, why not just tonight, if you haven't got a photo, if you've got a photo, grab a photo of them and just spend, when you go to bed, just before whatever it is you normally do for your routine of going to bed, just take 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, and sit in silence. If you've got a photo, just look at them, just look at them and watch and feel what happens in your mind, which then you feel in your soul. And if you cry, so what? Enjoy that emotion, because you'll laugh. Part of your memories will be sad with that person, but so many of them will also be happy and joyful and just grateful that you even had the experience with them in the first place. Because like I said, when we get shot out of all the 1 in a millions of sperms that come with us and we get through and that other person gets through, how magical is that connection when you think about it, that you two had any time together to share those emotions together.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Guys, any questions on that? And also for the experiences too. Like it is something that we do. And I just think having understanding and having just a different perspective, and also we can direct you in front of the experts that have been talking about this stuff for a long time. Please do reach out. I'll love the comments tonight, and I'll see you guys soon. Thank you, Mike Bromley, as well. We'll be on tomorrow.
Yeah, we're on tomorrow.
Take care.
See that, Matt. Reach out in a minute, yeah?